Necesito aprender español. It's been exciting working on the show. I worked with Josh Holloway 10 years ago on one of my very first movies, and so we've known each other for a long time. Our spouses are friends, our children are friends. It's really nice to have that much history working together. And Josh is an executive producer on the show as well. So when I decided that I wanted to try directing an episode, he was the first person that I talked to. And he said not only did he think it was a good idea, but that he would help fight for me to have the episode. So part of why I had this opportunity is because of this, sort of old friendship. And then the episode they gave me to direct is one of the most emotionally difficult episodes for Josh in the whole show. And so I then had an opportunity to support him as somebody who's known his work as an actor for the last 10 years. They gave me an episode with very few special effects and very few action sequences because those are more difficult and they require a little more training. But that ended up meaning that it's probably the most intense acting episode of the season. I did have to audition for the role. I was given the script secretly. I wasn't supposed to have it, and I read it and I loved it and I said I want to do this, and they said no. They didn't want anyone from Walking Dead involved in the show because Walking Dead had its own identity and they wanted this to be very separate. So I was in Toronto shooting a movie with Nick Cage, and I told him, I said, I just found the pilot script. I said, I just found this script and I have to do it, but they don't want me. And he said, well, make them say no to your audition, not to the idea of your audition. So I bribed a friend of mine with a really nice bottle of wine, and he put me on tape. I picked 2 scenes from the audition, and then I called everyone in Hollywood and I said, you have to get them to watch this audition. And while I was doing that, I didn't know this, but they hired Juan Campanella to be the director. The very first episode of television I ever did in Los Angeles, I did for Juan, before The Secrets in Their Eyes. And so when Juan came on, he had worked with me and he knew me, and he said, I'll watch your audition. And then he did something very smart. He called members of the Walking Dead crew, my cameraman and the script supervisor. And he said, I need to know if she's still a good person to work with because I don't want any monsters on my set. And you can lie to producers and directors, but you can't lie to a cameraman and you can't lie to a script supervisor. Thankfully, they're very good friends of mine. And thanks to them and thanks to Juan, I got the job. Well, when we worked together before, neither of us had children, and we were both at the beginning of our careers. I think it was right before Prison Break and after the first season of Lost. Much better actors in the last 10 years. And so it was wonderful to have somebody that you knew at the beginning of the journey and come back together kind of in the middle of the journey, I guess. I don't know, maybe it's the end, I don't know. We've had kids since, and our children are about the same age, and they're friends. Well, I've proven that I can support my family acting. I haven't made any money writing yet, and I'm pretty new at directing. If I had to choose one going forward, I think I would probably choose directing. I'm also aware that there are not many women directing, and when you're directing, you can hire other women, and you can choose projects that tell stories that have really good and interesting roles for women. I guess I would like to have the strongest possible voice in the entertainment industry to kind of rise those stories up. Particularly in North America, when we started this show, Obama was the president. And then, sorry world. When we started the show, it was based on history, but it could be the history, yes, of Nazi-occupied Paris, but it could be Spain under Franco, it could be Argentina, it could be Chile, it could be Peru, it could be North Korea. South Africa had a huge resistance movement. I mean, this is a global story. When Trump was elected, all of a sudden it went from being science fiction in North America to contemporary political drama. And all of a sudden being a part of a show which is essentially anti-fascist propaganda became incredibly important to all of us involved. And I think the great gift of science fiction is you can talk about politics, but you can dress it up with aliens and spaceships and keep talking about politics. So yes, I like that all we know is what the family knows, because I think part of life under an occupation is that you don't have information and that there's always questions about where people have gone that are missing and what is safe and what's really happening. But this is not a show that withholds information forever. One of the things I think is its strength is that we answer questions. And so the first episode of season 2 is a flashback. And it's a flashback to the day of the arrival. And so you go back and you get some answers. And this is also a show that answers questions about who the aliens are and what they look like and where they're coming from and what they want. It takes time because it's a story about a family. But as those questions become important for the family to know, then we know as well. She stands for what she believes in. She's willing to fight for her belief, which I guess is what courage. She's devoted to her children, but as devoted to the safety of their minds and their spirits, right? In an occupation, they control what you read, what you think, what you worship. And she feels very strongly that her children need to have freedom. I think Katie would be happy for any of the other characters to come and hang out. I think Sarah would be very useful to the resistance, partly because she's a doctor and those skills are important. I think she would really like to have Sarah on her side. I think she'd also really like Laurie as a mother. I think they would be women who would understand the impossible choices that you have to make in a sort of dystopian world between what you believe and that's impact on your children. No, it's too hard in television. There's too much time. My children need me to be me. So I actually have sort of rituals that start and end my day at work. So I get to work an hour early. I do yoga. I prepare my space and go over the work for the day. And then at the end of the day, when I take off my makeup and I take off my costume, I'm sort of consciously hanging the character up until tomorrow. My husband doesn't need to be married to all of these different women. And some of them don't need to come home with me. I like Katie a lot, but Katie could get me into real trouble if I took her home. Well, one of the things, what we see from women on TV, we see actresses. But when you turn the camera around, most of the time you're looking at an entire crew of men with maybe 1 or 2 women. This season on Colony, we had a female camera operator for the first time. And it was exciting. It was a relief to me. She was incredibly talented and very strong. It was just different. She had an eye on things that was different. It starts with what stories we choose to tell. So that means more women writers. And then it starts with who pays for those stories. So that means more women financiers and more women executives. It's easy to look at the number of women on television because that's getting better and go, oh, okay, we're doing well. But most television series, they have maybe 1 woman writer. And it's not just women either, it's people of color, right? The more diverse storytelling there is in the world, the more educated and compassionate and intelligent we'll all be. So that means women, men of color, gay and lesbian people need to be involved at every level of storytelling, not just what you see on TV.